you sum of 5.5. If we look at the first problem, it says cos pi over 8. Well, pi over 8 is a value that's not on the unit circle, so we're going to need to use our identities. If we convert this to degrees, pi over 8 times 180 degrees over pi, this ends up equaling 22.5 degrees. So if we come over here, we can ask ourselves, what can we replace theta with so that we end up with a value inside the parentheses that would be equivalent to 22.5. We can replace theta with 45 degrees, right? Because 45 divided by 2 is 22.5. I also want to see if cosine should be positive or negative, because when I change it into half or double angles, sometimes I might be looking at something else. So I'm going to ask myself, cosine of 22.5 degrees. What quadrant is 22.5 degrees in? So it's in first quadrant. All values here should be positive. So I know my answer should be positive. I always like to do that before I start. Now, let's see what we get. So we have cosine of 45 degrees over 2, where we know the top is theta. And we know the formula is plus or minus the square root of 1 plus cosine of theta all over 2. Wherever we see theta, we're going to replace that with 45 degrees. We ask ourselves, what's the cosine 45 degrees? Well, the cosine at 45 degrees is root 2 over 2. So we're going to go in here. We'll still say plus or minus the square root of 1 to positive root 2 over 2. And this is all over 2. Now we need to simplify. In red, in the numerator, we can replace the 1 with a 2 over 2. So we know in the numerator we have 2 plus root 2 all over 2. And in our denominator, we still have the 2. We need to simplify. So we have plus or minus the square root of 2 plus root 2 all over 2 divided by the denominator of 2. So under that radical, if we simplify, we have 2 plus root 2 all over 2 divided by 2, or 2 over 1. I'm going to change division to multiplication and flip this fraction on the right. So I'm going to put the 1 up top and the 2 on bottom. So now we would have 2 plus root 2 over 4. 2 plus root 2 over 4. So this all goes under a radical. So this is plus or minus the square root of 2 plus square root 2 all over 4. Now we're going to break apart into two pieces. So we have plus or minus. In the numerator, we have 2 plus square root 2 all over square root of 4. And we can replace the square root of 4 with 2. And then we said in the beginning our answer should be positive because cosine of that original value in parentheses, cosine of 22.5 is positive. So we know our final answer should be positive. So we would say our final answer is positive square root of 2 plus root 2 all over 2. That's our answer. Let's try the next one. So it says sine of 75 degrees. So before we start, let's ask ourselves, should our answer be positive or negative? All students take calc. 75 degrees is in the first quadrant. So in the first quadrant, all values are positive. So we know our answer should be positive. Needs to be positive because we're in quadrant 1, our angle. 75 degrees isn't on the unit circle. We need to replace 75 degrees with some value that works on the unit circle. We know that if theta over 2 equals 75, right, if we replace this inside parentheses with theta over 2, then we need to figure out what theta needs so that when you do theta, that number divided by 2, number on the unit circle divided by 2, equals 75. If you're not sure, you can set it up and say inside the parentheses now theta over 2 needs to equal what I did have inside the parentheses. They need to be equivalent. So if you multiply both sides by 2, that's going to tell us what our theta needs to be. So 75 degrees times 2 will get us 150 degrees. Now we're going to use our formula. So we'll replace this with 150 degrees. Oops. And our original formula that said sine of theta over 2 is plus or minus the square root of 1 minus cos theta all over 2. We're going to replace the theta with 150 degrees. And we know our answer has to be positive, so we can circle the positive and cross off the negative. Now let's simplify. The cosine of 150 degrees, let's take a look where that is. So over here, we have 150 degrees. So this is 30, this is 60, right? 150 is 30 degrees away from 180. So let's see what we reflected. So this is 60, this is 30. So it's a reflection of 30 degrees. So if at 30 degrees we have root 3 over 2, comma 1/2, over here we would have negative root 3 over 2, positive 1/2. So the cosine at 150 is negative root 3 over 2. So we would have positive square root of 1 minus the quantity, because it's 1 minus, that's the formula, 1 minus, and cosine at 150 we just said is negative root 3 over 2 all over 2. We know that the double negative right in here is going to turn positive, so we'll cross that off. So it's 1 plus root 3 over 2. We can make this 1 over 1. We'll replace that with 2 over 2, which is still 1. So 2 plus root 3 all over 4. So we would have positive square root of 2 plus, right, double negative, root 3 all over 2. And in that denominator, we had the 2, right? This is the top in blue and the bottom is in red. Now we need to simplify. I'm first going to come off to the side and simplify what's under that radical. So under the radical, we have 2 plus square root 3 all over 2 divided by, denominator's 2, or 2 over 1. We're going to change division to multiplication, and we'll flip our fraction on the right. So now we would have 2 plus root 3 all over 4. So we can replace underneath that radical with 2 plus root 3 over 4. So we have positive square root of 2 plus root 3 all over 4. And then we have positive on top, square root of 2 plus root 3 over denominator square root of 4, which equals positive square root of 2 plus root 3, and square root of 4 simplifies to 2. So our answer is positive square root 2 plus root 3 all over 2. Let's do tan of 195 degrees. So we look at this, and tangent of 195 degrees isn't on our unit circle. We need to look at this and ask ourselves, what can I do to create theta over 2, or theta some number on the unit circle, and when I divide it by 2 I get 195. If we're not sure, off to the side we can do theta over 2 equals 195. We can multiply both sides by 2, so the 2's cancel, and 195 degrees times 2 would get us 390 degrees. Now 390 degrees is just one spin, 360 plus 30 more. So we're going to use theta of 30 degrees. So we're going to replace theta with 30, because 390 degrees is the same spot as 30 degrees. So we know tan of theta over 2 we can rewrite as 1 minus the cosine of theta all over sine of theta. We can replace theta with 30 degrees because that's the same spot as 390 degrees. And then we have 1 minus the cosine at 30 degrees. We're at 30 degrees. We have root 3 over 2, comma 1/2. So the cosine at 30 degrees is root 3 over 2. 1 minus root 3 over 2 all over the sine at 30 degrees is 1/2. Now we can rewrite this as numerator 1 minus root 3 all over, 1 minus root 3 over 2, that's an expression on top, divided by 1/2. We can rewrite this as 1 over 1 or 2 over 2. So we have 2 minus root 3 all over 2. We'll change division to multiplication, flip our fraction on the right, the 2's cancel. So we have 2 minus root 3, and that's our final answer. We'll have the rest of the problems in another video.